The case involving 18-year-old Kelsey Smith is hard to wrap your head around. She was taken right in the middle of the day from a busy Target parking lot in Kansas. This isn't the kind of thing you come across every day. Yet it happens. Getting kidnapped is terrifying, but it feels somewhat more graspable when it occurs while someone's by themselves in a remote spot, especially after dark. Kelsey Ann Smith was born in Overland Park, Johnson County, Kansas, on May 3, 1989. Her parents are Greg Allen and Missy Smith. She was the third child in her family. She had 3 siblings altogether. When Kelsey was little, she was incredibly cheerful and sharp. When I say sharp, I mean genuinely brilliant. She was super outgoing. She was a joy to be around and cared a lot about her family and friends. Kelsey never backed down from a challenge. Whenever someone told her she couldn't do something, her go-to response was "wanna bet?" People who knew her said she wouldn't accept anything for herself unless her brothers got the same thing too. That shows how well she worked with others. Kelsey went to Shawnee Mission West High School and graduated on May 24, 2007. From the start, she was a chatty girl. She loved being on stage, playing different instruments, and pretty much everything else. Kelsey threw herself into her school's dance team and played the clarinet. She took part in track and field, theater, art, choir, and even a writing class. At the time of the incident, she worked part-time at an AMC movie theater. After high school, Kelsey was set to start at Kansas State University that fall to study veterinary science. Well, Kelsey had always wanted some kind of career in medicine. As a kid, she dreamed of being a doctor, but she switched gears and now aimed to become a veterinarian. Around the same period as the incident, Kelsey was dating a guy named John Beardsmith. He loved Kelsey more than anything in the world. The things John loved most about Kelsey were that she was smart, kind, and really lived life to its fullest. John wasn't new to the Smith home. Sometimes, his girlfriend's family would have him over for dinner and games. John and Kelsey's dad, Greg, got along great too. They mostly connected over sports. Everyone in Kelsey's family thought John was the ideal match for her. Kelsey loved marking even the tiniest milestones. So even though their relationship was fairly new, they were already clicking really well. Their romance had been solid for 6 months before June 2, 2007, when Kelsey decided to pick up a little gift for John at her local Target. But for Kelsey's family, that became the day everything fell apart because she never made it back home. June 2, 2007, began like a typical day. Missy, Kelsey's mom, had to go to a friend's wedding that day while Kelsey had her shift at the AMC theater. After Kelsey got off work, she, her dad Greg, and her sister Lindsay headed to a nearby amusement park. Later that evening, around 6 p.m., Kelsey wanted to run a quick errand to Target to grab something for her boyfriend John to mark their 6-month milestone. The first thing Kelsey did was ask her sister to come along. But her sister had other things going on and couldn't join. So Kelsey borrowed her sister's 1987 Buick Regal and drove to Target. This was a route Kelsey knew well. She wasn't heading to some strange or risky place. Plus, it was still bright out, so there didn't seem to be any cause for worry, right? Kelsey went on with her plan. She parked and walked into the store. CCTV footage captured her selecting what she needed as she moved along the aisles. Kelsey had on shorts and a light pink tank top. Phone records showed she called her mom. They chatted for a bit, and then her mom said she'd be home soon and hung up. A few minutes after that, though, Kelsey missed a call from her boyfriend John, which was out of character. Kelsey always picked up her phone, and she just talked to her mom, so she clearly hadn't forgotten it at home. John got really worried, so he went to Kelsey's house and found out she wasn't there. Kelsey still wasn't home when everyone figured she'd be back after plenty of time had gone by. Right away, a panicked Greg started calling Kelsey over and over, but no answer. Now this was seriously concerning. Anyone familiar with Kelsey knew she never ignored calls from her parents. She'd just spoken with her mom, so it was bizarre that she suddenly went silent. Kelsey's parents contacted her friends to see if she was hanging out with any of them, but she wasn't. The Smith family was deeply shaken by Kelsey's total lack of response. After some time, Greg and one of Kelsey's sisters drove around the neighborhood and checked parking lots at various stores to see if Kelsey's car was there. Eventually, they spotted Kelsey's car, but strangely it wasn't at Target, the last place she'd been seen. Instead, it sat in a poorly lit Macy's parking lot at Oak Park Mall, with no one around. This was when Kelsey's family realized something terrible had happened. and they immediately called the police. When officers got to where Kelsey's car was parked, they checked inside. They found her purse, wallet, other personal belongings, and the items she'd bought at Target. Kelsey was the only thing missing. Her phone was gone too. The car had no damage. The officers didn't see any trash or anything unusual. But when they looked at the car from the rear, they noticed something pink poking out from the trunk. When police opened the trunk, though, it was empty. The police also did forensic work on the vehicle and found a single handprint on the driver's side seat belt. It didn't match Kelsey. Someone who wasn't Kelsey or anyone in her family had driven the car. The police found the situation tough to process. The only option left was to check the surveillance footage, which kicked off the official search for a missing person. After going to Target as usual, Kelsey vanished, and her car and things turned up abandoned at another store. What exactly had gone down? The best way for police to figure it out was to head to Target and look at the CCTV for anything odd. That's exactly what they did. Target provided the police with the CCTV recording, and they went over it carefully. They watched Kelsey walk in, shop, grab her items at checkout, and leave the store. Nothing looked wrong. Kelsey didn't interact or speak with anyone. She didn't seem scared or uneasy. The officers were really confused and frustrated because it all seemed completely normal. But when police checked the parking lot CCTV, they saw Kelsey driving away in the opposite direction from her house after loading her purchases. Why would she head that way? Meanwhile, Greg and Missy kept searching for their daughter on their own while police reviewed the footage. They made missing person posters and put them up everywhere possible. All they wanted was their daughter back home. And with every passing minute, their fear kept building. A big search effort got underway for Kelsey. Some of her friends, neighbors, and other people from the community stepped up to help comb the area. The whole town rallied to find 18-year-old Kelsey because they were worried about her safety. Trying to get answers and ease their doubts, police even interviewed Kelsey's family and her boyfriend John. But things changed when they looked at CCTV from the Macy's where Kelsey's car was left. Investigators slowed the tape down and still managed to spot a person getting out of Kelsey's car after turning it off. Even with the low quality, it wasn't Kelsey which stood out. The person seemed to wear a light or white shirt and dark shorts. It looked like a man. But who was he, and why did he have Kelsey's car? In the end, officers went back to the Target CCTV and searched for the same person they'd seen. This time, the footage that had seemed ordinary turned chilling with this new context. It turned out Kelsey had parked next to a big truck and then gone into Target. Just seconds later, a man in dark shorts and a white shirt came up from behind her. It became clear the man trailing her owned the truck she'd parked beside. Viewers saw the man keeping his distance as Kelsey shopped and picked out her items. As soon as Kelsey left Target, the suspicious man followed her out. One disturbing detail in the footage was that Kelsey never looked afraid and never checked behind her, showing she had no idea the man was following her. She was completely unaware he was tracking her, which is really scary to think about. This also led police to examine the Target parking lot video frame by frame while Kelsey loaded her car. At regular speed, it looked like Kelsey was just getting in. But frame by frame review showed something, or someone rushing at Kelsey's car from the left and grabbing her. At first it seemed like Kelsey was bending to enter her car, but it was later determined she'd been badly hurt and collapsed. Based on this, the officers were sure Kelsey had been abducted. The figure in the footage also wore a white shirt and dark shorts, the same outfit as the person seen in the Macy's video where her car was later dumped. The officers now knew foul play was involved. Still, Kelsey was nowhere to be found. And who was this man? Actually, the only real way to locate both Kelsey and her abductor was through her phone. Verizon Wireless, Kelsey's cell provider, dragged their feet on this part of the investigation. At first, when she went missing, Kelsey's parents contacted Verizon to track her phone. Kelsey's father, Greg, is a police officer, so he knew the fastest way to find his daughter would be pinging her phone. But Verizon refused and wouldn't give any location details on the last ping until 4 days later, by which point the FBI was already involved. Verizon said the family hadn't used the right wording when asking for the phone's location, which is hard to accept. What language were they supposed to use? How could it be clearer than "tell me where this phone is"? Anyway, the info finally came after 4 long, agonizing days. The last ping from Kelsey's phone was from a tower about 18 to 20 miles from where she was taken. To make it worse, the location was in another state. The area got narrowed to Grandview's Longview Lake. To clarify, Kelsey was abducted in Kansas, but her phone's final use happened in Missouri. After putting together a search team, police and the FBI went to a thickly wooded spot on June 6th and started searching. It didn't take days or even hours. It took just 45 minutes. Around 1:30 p.m., they found something, but not what anyone wanted. The body of 18-year-old Kelsey Smith was discovered, which is heartbreaking. Kelsey's unclothed body was covered with branches and leaves, and she'd been strangled with a belt. Investigators had the awful job of telling Kelsey's parents her body had been found, which was incredibly hard. To say their lives were forever changed doesn't even cover it. Those who knew Kelsey, along with her family and friends, couldn't believe what they heard. What she did that day was something she'd done many times before. Yet now she was gone. Can you imagine the shock, guilt, and heartbreak Kelsey's sister must have felt? She had other commitments, so she didn't go with Kelsey. It has to be so tough for Kelsey's sister to deal with all the what-ifs in her mind. None of this was her fault. Still, it's easy to see why she might feel guilty. But even after finding her body, police still needed to identify who was responsible for Kelsey's death. To do that, they went back to the CCTV from Target and Macy's. Kelsey's car was left at Macy's around 9:17 p.m. on June 2nd. When police checked the Target surveillance from roughly the same time, they noticed something or someone. A man in light-colored clothing got into a 1970s Chevrolet pickup truck and drove off. Even in the dark, officers couldn't make out many details of the vehicle. Still, it looked a lot like the truck parked next to Kelsey's car in the earlier footage. When police compared both recordings from 6 p.m. and 9:22 p.m., they saw the pickup truck showed up in both. But this still wasn't enough for officers to identify the owner. At that point, police released footage of the man and the truck to the public and asked anyone in the area with tips or info about this person to come forward. Soon after, they got a ton of calls, and one led to a major break. Once clearer images of the man and truck went public, a woman called police. She said the man looked a lot like her neighbor, who owned the exact same kind of pickup truck. That man was Edwin Hall, 26 years old. He was married and had a 4-year-old son. Officers felt sure they'd found the right suspect. Edwin was arrested on the evening of June 6th, right as his family was getting ready to head out on vacation. When police showed up at Edwin's home, his vehicle was loaded with luggage. Luckily, police didn't give him much chance to do anything. He was taken into custody right away and charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping with dangerous intent. His family was stunned. The vacation meant to be fun for the whole family turned into something completely different. When police looked into Edwin's criminal record, they found no adult convictions, but he had juvenile offenses. While in foster care, Edwin was placed with a family. But after being adopted, he tried to hurt his new sister with a bread knife. Though he was only 15, he was old enough to know it was wrong. Later, Edwin faced assault charges for hitting a child in the head with a baseball bat. There's no question Edwin had a history of anger and violence. When police asked Edwin what he knew, he pretended to know nothing, like so many offenders do. But when his fingerprints matched the one on Kelsey's seatbelt, it was an exact fit. Edwin's print was inside Kelsey's car, and he'd been seen following her through Target. How could he say he knew nothing about her? So police knew Edwin wasn't telling the truth. In the end, police questioned him and set his bond at $5 million. Investigators also told him he could face the death penalty for the charges to push him and maybe get more details. He eventually dropped the act and confessed to avoid the death penalty. Edwin said he fell in love with Kelsey II. She pulled into the Target lot about a minute after he did around 6 p.m., even though he was already married with a kid. But when has that stopped anyone? For whatever reason, he chose to follow Kelsey through the store to check if she was meeting someone. In fact, Edwin said he was drawn to Kelsey's legs, which is really disturbing. What he did next was truly awful. He waited outside until Kelsey was totally alone and vulnerable. When he felt the timing was right, he came at her with a gun and forced her into her own car, which the video caught. Once inside the vehicle with Kelsey, Edwin took the driver's seat right away and drove off from the lot. He went 20 miles from Target and brought Kelsey to a wooded area in Missouri. He sexually assaulted her and then killed her there so she couldn't tell anyone. After the brutal act, Edwin went back, left Kelsey's car at Macy's, walked to his pickup truck still at Target, and drove away like nothing happened. It was clear to police this vicious person needed to face trial for what he did to Kelsey. But there was a problem. There was major debate over where the trial should happen because Edwin killed her in Missouri while the abduction started in Kansas. Cases like this have always been tricky to sort out. Surely there are law enforcement folks who see how jurisdiction works across counties. The killer is a murderer based on what he did and who he killed. So why not just pick a county? Everyone knows what happened, so why drag it out for days or weeks? In any case, the prosecution offered Edwin a plea deal. Instead of the death penalty, he could plead guilty to all charges against him. Edwin took it right away. Many of Kelsey's family and friends were in the courtroom. They just wanted this monster held accountable for what he did. On September 16, 2007, almost 2 months after his guilty plea, he got sentenced to life in prison without parole. After the sentence, Edwin cried and apologized to Kelsey's family, as if that could change anything or bring her back. During the victim impact statements, Kelsey's parents were overcome with sorrow and emotion. Even though they were glad justice came for Kelsey, it wasn't enough to make up for what was lost. If Kelsey's parents felt any sympathy, it was for Edwin's son, an innocent kid who had no clue about the horrible things his father could do. Edwin grew up without parents, and now his own child would grow up without a father. Though the person behind Kelsey's sudden, violent, senseless death was locked away, Greg and Missy pointed out many mistakes and loose ends during the investigation. This stood out especially when they tried to pinpoint Kelsey's location before she vanished. Because of privacy rules, Verizon Wireless waited 4 days before sharing Kelsey's phone location. That data was what finally let law enforcement find her. Once they had it, police located her in only 45 minutes. Honestly, Verizon should have acted on the Smith family's request immediately. The case could have moved much faster. I get there might be parts of releasing this info I don't fully grasp. But in my view, there's no good reason to hold it back for 4 days in a murder investigation. In Kelsey's case, getting the data sooner wouldn't have saved her life. She was already gone by the time she was reported missing. On the other hand, in another situation, that delay could mean the difference between life and death. Back when Kelsey disappeared, phone companies would only share location, texts, and call records if the user asked or a court ordered it. And if you know about warrants in criminal cases, you know getting them takes time. That can be critical in missing person situations. The Kelsey Smith Act came about because of this problem. The law required cell phone companies to give info like a phone's location straight to law enforcement if someone was in danger. This let police find the person fast and hopefully safe. In 2009, the act became law in Kansas, but sadly it didn't pass in the U.S. House in 2016. It's tough to see how this act could get rejected. While I know privacy issues are part of it, it seems unreasonable that a law that could save so many lives got set aside so easily. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Hidden Cases files. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.